so when wrestling went 3D, so when polygons replaced sprites, what happened? We spoke last time about Power Move Pro Wrestling on top of our 16-bit era. So I guess in many ways Power Move perhaps was the first 3D wrestling game that actually was a wrestling environment. So what about the mainstream kind of wrestling games? What happened with the first 3D games that came through the market? What came first?
Well, we all know that Power Move Pro Wrestling for wrestling fans on the PlayStation 1 was the first full 3D wrestling game with actual psychology of breaking down body parts and getting your special and getting the win. After that, more mainstream, major company wise, you had WWF Warzone.
Warzone. So Warzone I got so many good memories of, because I know you and I, we were at iTech together when that game came out.
Yes.
So I think you had it on the PlayStation. I think I had it on the PlayStation. I think there was someone in our little group had it on the N64 as well. And how different that game was compared to anything else on the market. Because it felt and looked like a wrestling game. It looked like a wrestling ring. And there was options to it. There was like hardcore match was in there.
Tornado Tag.
Tornado Tag was in there.
It was a big thing.
4 guys at once.
And the bleeding system, people used to get cut on the backs. You don't even get that SmackDown now. People cut on the arms, on the back, on the leg.
And the fight for who goes through the table, in the table that didn't always appear.
No, and it was just there, and if someone fell over next to it close enough, it would go through with a drop toe hold.
Yeah, and everyone was trying to always get like the belly to back suplex in there, or something like rock bottom was like just you had to kind of get the alignment right, let alone anything else, and that was like half the battle was just trying to get it right.
It was hard enough trying to do that with a standing opponent that wasn't doing anything, let alone an active competitor actually trying to beat your brains out.
Because in that game also you had Vince McMahon was the commentator with Jim Ross.
I'm not quite sure.
It was. I have it over here. I was playing it just the other day.
I'll check you.
Yeah, just
Check the big brain on you.
big brain on Brad. And 64 copy.
I've just got to say as well, if we're talking about commentary in wrestling games, one of my favourite ones, I'm pretty sure it was Giant Graham. I have no clue who was actually on the commentary. All I remember is the ridiculous, over the top. DDT.
Yes. I thought that game was so good. I mean, on a completely unrelated but highly related note, the Sega Saturn archive of games has been uploaded by Sega for free to archive.org of its entire Sega Saturn archive. So on there was a wrestling game which was the precursor to Giant Graham, which was Ultimate Pro Wrestling featuring Virtual Fighter. So I was playing that the other day, and it had like the
What was you playing this on?
I got a PC emulator. But it's the Sega Saturn games. They run on my PC.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the SSFA emulator. You can play ROMs, or you can actually play the original Sega Saturn discs. So yeah, Sega have uploaded all its Sega Saturn archive for free to the internet, to the archive database, which is pretty awesome. So hence the reason I went on a bit of a downloading spree, and came across All Japan Pro Wrestling. So I got to give that a bit of a play the other day. That was pretty cool. So in there you've got Jeffrey, Cage, and Kage, and Wolf from Virtual Fighter in there, along with the New Japan roster. And it kind of has this combat system. It was an arcade game where you had essentially like a scoop slam, grab, and attack. And so if you grab a guy, it kind of works a bit like rock paper scissors. One move will beat the other. So it's kind of a fast-paced action fest. And the depth of the move system really it's remarkable for the time. And then you had the sequel to that, which again was Giant Graham and Giant Graham 2000, which is what you just mentioned with the DDT suplex.
And the first game as well, where they had kind of a showcase mode.
Yeah, so either you recreated a classic match with the moves that at the time. So you had to actually recreate the move yourself. What really happened, of course.
Of course. Swinging back the other way, when we're not talking WWE games for the main era for 3D wrestling games, you had WCW, who actually started a little bit earlier with WCW versus the World on the PlayStation.
That was probably a big main step era game. And in terms of the roster, there was 5 or 6 different rosters in the game itself. I wasn't actually sure whether the promotions were real, because you didn't know, because I didn't recognize half these guys. I didn't recognize more than half.
But I think a lot of them were. It's kind of like Fire Pro Wrestling.
Yeah,
not them, but it is.
It's close enough. Wig wig.
Yeah, like Bulk Bogan. I wonder who that could be with his red and yellow outfits and big mustache.
So on the WCW roster, I can remember there was like Sting and Flair and Benoit, Eddie. I think Malenko was in there. Obviously Hogan was the main star. Sting, Rick and Scott Steiner. I think that was the WCW roster.
Oh, Scott Norton.
Yeah, Scott Norton, the guy who no one really ever cared about.
No, but it was big in Japan. So
he was very big in Japan. Yeah. And they had on the right hand side, had some All Japan and New Japan guys. There was like Masachiro Chono on there. There was there was the Pegasus Kid, which of course was Benoit. Again,
who could that be?
And a whole raft of other guys who no one ever really played as. But no, that was good, because it was the first game of the AKI generation, wasn't it? Of the who went on to make WCW NWO Revenge and No Mercy and all the legendary ones, as it were. That was
the Japanese versions of Virtual Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, that was the first kind of prototype of that system. It's extremely playable even now. The speed is good.
Yeah. And if you have the opportunity to try some of the N64 versions, which always look neater and tidier, and play them on an emulator, you just get that little boost of speed.
Yeah.
Just to give you that 2018 feel. It's a little bit slow for the 1999.
Yeah, because we're talking like PlayStation systems that were still struggling to run games, as it were. But now you can run them at full speed on a PC, perhaps at the speed they were originally intended. Because bear in mind, if you're a UK fan, of course, all of our games were slowed down by 17%, due to the fact that we got PAL here, and the games are all had windows and borders and stuff. So all of our games actually used to run slower than their NTSC and Japan counterparts, which was frustrating as hell. Especially when you've played a full speed game. So if you are a wrestling fan, make sure you run it on an emulator already. You try and get your console fixed to run at 60 Hz. But so what other 3D wrestling games kind of hit that time? There was the Attitude, which is what followed up from Warzone, wasn't it?
Which was like the only letdown with Attitude over Warzone was there was a reduction in moves per character.
Yeah, it was.
But there was so many more characters, and the creator wrestler option on Attitude was just so much better.
Yeah, because I can remember, again, on Warzone here, you press any 2 directions and a button, and you did a move, whether it be a DDT or a suplex or whatever. So you felt like you were never, if you only just come into the game, you kind of knew what you could do just by, if you're a Mortal Kombat fan for sure, 2 directions and a button. But on Attitude, it was just forward and a button for a suplex, hip toss, and a choke, which is what you always end up finding yourself doing. And then you might have 4 or 5 moves that were individual to the character, but trying to work out what those were, sometimes you had the most tedious of matches before they even happened.
And then there was a shift in who was producing the games. AKI took the WWE license.
That's right, yeah.
And that gave us WWF WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy, 2 of the finest professional wrestling games by today's standards.
Still today. Hey, the PC version still has mods coming out for No Mercy.
God, they do, and they are spectacular. And WCW,
went to
they got
EA?
a THQ producer as well, didn't they? but it was a completely different system. They got WCW Nitro and Thunder,
That's right. Yeah,
and absolutely every character had all of the exact same moves, all based on a sequence of button pushes
yeah, you,
and one finisher.
yeah. You press like 3 buttons in a row and it didn't move. It
And
was
you had to do it before the other guy did.
yeah. It was weird. I seem to remember like you could to make the game run faster. You could turn off all the background stuff. You could turn off the crowd, and you could turn off the ring graphics. So the game then runs smoother to play, which is what everyone did because
That's right. There was the turbo ring. That's what it was.
That's the turbo ring. You know this.
It'd wipe out everything except for like the ropes and a box to stand on.
Pretty much
And
just a box.
yeah, it played very quick. It was a very impressive looking game. I thought the character models looked better than they did in WrestleMania and WCW Revenge, character model wise, but the gameplay was so flawed.
Yeah,
I mean, it boasted 64 characters, if I remember correctly, and there was a couple of silly ones in there. And then they released Thunder, which is the exact same gameplay, changed a few graphics up a little bit.
yeah. It was blue as opposed to being the red Nitro, and
That's
it threw
right.
the entire dev team in there as playable characters.
Yeah, they had a roster of 128 characters to play. And it's like, we'll have every wrestler. And then we'll have the refs. Then we'll have the production crew of the game. And then we'll have silly options like
The
a
kangaroo.
wrestling toaster or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah,
Or
it was
an
just- it was
invisible
just
man with
silly.
just a couple of hands and some eyes.
Yeah, it was. It got to that point. It gets silly. And didn't WF do that with some games as well? It started throwing all your deft characters in there as well.
They threw some ridiculous things in there, but never like Invisible Man with a couple of hands.
No,
Not that
yeah.
I remember
No,
anyway.
fair enough,
Fred
okay.
Durst.
So what came after that? I guess.
Well, it
Yeah,
was the
but-
rise of SmackDown.
Well, no, you had the ECW kind of license pop up around that time, didn't you? Because
That's right, yeah.
After all the promotions kind of moved companies, didn't it? So
Yeah, it was Accolade. Was it Accolade that did
Acclaim,
Acclaim?
yeah,
That was right, Acclaim. That's okay. Yeah.
yeah, Acclaim had the
They
WF
did
license.
Warzone and Attitude, and then they did ECW Hardcore Revolution and Anarchy Rules.
Yeah,
And
and then went on to do
the
Legends of
problem
Wrestling.
with those two games were
It was Attitude with less.
yeah, and we'd all moved on.
Yeah,
We'd moved on to a better control system and that, and it was literally the past two games with lesser known characters.
yeah, it was like that. And I mean, occasionally, I've got both of them on the Dreamcast and PlayStation. When I've dipped into, I'm going to have a wrestling game day, and I'll play Anarchy Rules or I'll play Hardcore Revolution. And it's good to see these celebrity characters because I remember them, but the gameplay wise, it's stiff, it's awkward, it doesn't move very well. I mean, even like Anarchy Rules had like a brimstone match. It started getting silly with fire pits on the floor, and it's like, what are you guys doing? But there was like, it's probably the only game actually that had a dumpster match. I've never seen that. I've seen it happen for real, but I've never seen that in a game. And you had the kendo stick stuff was in the Anarchy Rules, but it was just a low res mess. And compared to what had come out from Ukes in the form of SmackDown 2, and what else was coming out, which was EA had picked up the WCW license with Mayhem. It looked far under what the other two guys were putting out.
Yeah, I don't know why EA even bothered. I don't know what the messes that they produced were. The thing is as well, towards late 2000, EA was still making another WCW game.
Yeah, they were.
They actually took the scans of Goldberg and a few other wrestlers preparing for the next game, and obviously with WCW going down the pan, they just scrapped it.
I mean, what do you think that was like then? Because I guess that's where licensing really goes bad. If you've got a product that you've basically bought into, you know, your EA, you've bought into WCW, and then WCW folds. What do? Who gets the payoff? How do you
do
get...
what every other wrestling game company's ever done? Scrap the license part of it and continue on with the game.
Which is what they did. I guess with AKI, when they lost all the brands of wrestling, as it were, and they'd all disappeared, they created Def Jam Vendetta.
And what a terrible game that was. That's a lie. It was awesome. It was a bit weird that you had rappers beating the tar out of each other, but hey, it was still a wrestling game,
Well,
and it played very well.
I think the first one was I really enjoyed much better than the second one. The second,
Yeah, the first one was it was the wrestling games that we all know.
yeah,
The second one, it was more like Pit Fighter.
yeah. Well, that's right because it kind of moved from it was rings in some of these underground fight clubs.
That's right, yeah.
But you started getting over the top finishes, and we know kind of like the main guy had he had a vertebraker as a finisher, but you jump in the air, spin around first, and then hit the mat. It looks as cool as fuck.
Yeah, it was like a power bomb, and they'll hit the ground, and their legs would pop up, and then turn it into a Boston crab, and then they'd like swing them out and turn it into a wheelbarrow reverse suplex or something like that.
Yeah, and then Def Jam 2 was like you said, it just became Pit Fight. It was just a
Yeah. It would just beat down that one.
yeah.
Again, not a bad game, but we're sticking with the wrestling games, so
Yeah.
Def Jam 2 didn't really meet the criteria of wrestling game.
No,
There
it
was
didn't.
There was
So-
no.
And I guess that's where the 3D era kind of drifts off a bit. Because I guess from beyond that point, you start going into the Xbox comes out, the GameCube comes out, and that I guess that's perhaps a conversation for another time, where it goes from 32-bit into 64 and
Yeah, I
128
think we'll
on it.
pick up from WWE or WWF SmackDown and how THQ created a different WWE license brand for each system.
Yeah, because I guess you had like the
And we'll save
SmackDown
that for
one.
the next one.
When SmackDown 1 came along, how different that was. It was fast, it was arcade paced, you had a decent roster going on, and the gameplay felt really fun. It felt. I can remember going into Another World, or Forbidden Planet's precursor, and seeing SmackDown running and going, man, that's fucking cool. Yeah, compared to what we've had at the time.
It was fast, smooth, and the weapons, and you could go different places as well. That was the biggest selling point. You could run around the arenas.
Yeah, you could go to the back, car park a lot, and the boss's table and stuff.
And the kitchen, with that steel table. Always good for a pedigree.
It's not like was it SmackDown 2 where you actually had the breakable announce tables and you could do like crazy shit through them.
I'm not quite sure.
Because you could find stuff like doing the Jeff Hardy's Swanson bomb off the top of Hell in a Cell through the guy on the table and stuff. No, that can't be SmackDown 2 because that's like no. There could be 3 onwards. 3's PlayStation 2
No,
era.
I
So.
think 2 had a Hell in a Cell match in it, but it wasn't a Hell in a Cell. It was a cage
It's
match
just-
with the roof on it.
That's right. It was just the cage with the 9 grid. That was it. Yeah, on the top.
And they called it Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. Man, me and Jason were playing the PlayStation 1 wrestling games on the PS3 the other day, and hence we played WWE vs. the World, and we played SmackDown 2, and just the speed is just ridiculous. I can remember how revolutionary it was at the time, and this was like the best game ever, but actually, no, it was just a fucking mess. It was just so fast, so random. Well, the roster was huge.
Yeah, it had a damn good roster. And not to mention as well, with guys leaving or contract disputes and such, they created wrestler A and B and C and D. And in those made up wrestlers, there was also The Big Show and Ken Shamrock and I think Jeff Jarrett and Meat.
That's right. Yeah, they had move sets that were kind of, well, he's not in the game now. We'll just push it to the creator wrestler. And you just choose this guy. Ah, there he is. I think Rob Van Dam had a move set like that. It was in there.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was a well thought out game.
Yeah, and ladder matches were in there, wasn't it? There were.
Yes.
Yes. Was that that's the first 3D
They-
wrestling to have a ladder match?
Definitely. But that was the hardest Dudley's, Edge and Christian's fault. They
Yeah.
made all that very, very cool again.
Yeah, because was SmackDown the first game to actually have ladder matches?
It may have been. I think that Attitude and such had ladders in, but you could just hit people
Yeah,
with
yeah, they
them.
were just weapons, weren't they? The generic
Yeah.
swing and stuff. Because, like you said, it's when the wrestlers started getting inventive. You know, like hard as the Dudleys, just doing crazy shit off ladders, and I guess gamers wanted to do that as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, if the WWE guys could do it, you wanted to do it in the game.
Yeah, and I guess you've kind of seen that evolve through the SmackDown series as wrestlers started doing stuff. That kind of mechanic was added. Like I'm thinking now, like Shelton Benjamin using the ladder as teeter, and that you could run up it and dive off it. And that was added in as it came along.
That's right.
But then
Weapon finishers and
yeah,
being able to bridge the barricade and the ring apron.
yeah.
That's a more recent one.
But I guess the 32-bit era is actually when wrestling games started looking like wrestling, and it was much needed. I think when you went from the 2D era of the 16-bit to 32-bit, it was wrestling games started looking like how they should do. Their presentation, the ring entrance way, licensed music with it's on CD, made a big impact on that. I mean, that's the one thing about say Attitude and Warzone stood out. That wrestler entrances. I guess SmackDown 2 had that as their entrance. Actually, was the video of their entrance.
And then walking down the middle of the screen.
Yeah, yeah. You remember? You know what it was like.
I have no idea. I'm not old enough for that.
But was there any like New Japan stuff, Old Japan 3D games that came out around that time besides?
See, that's the thing. I mean, we're only really seeing what Japan had now because of emulators. At that time, it was. I mean, you had to be pretty clued up to know that you needed a foreign console or converter, and then you had to be able to get the games because there wasn't the internet then that there is now.
No, you couldn't go to like Amazon or go to PlayAsia or whatever. And, I'll just order it. You had to actually find a retailer over there who actually was willing to send it.
Yeah, you had to find out. Well, for us, it would have been another world.
Yeah,
And the imported games were so expensive,
yeah, I know.
so expensive.
I spent £89 on like X-Men vs Street Fighter.
Yeah, as I've mentioned before, Capcom versus SNK. I paid a small, tiny fortune for that. But I was just blown away that SNK, Capcom, same game.
Well,
Wow.
yeah, it was like the Marvel crossover for the gaming the first time. So good. So
Yeah. And then, like I said, Giant Grammar as well. When I got that for the Dreamcast,
that was such a good game. It really was.
it was. It took a little getting used to, but once you was in, you was in. But then again, I found that about WrestleMania 2000 as well.
Yeah, WrestleMania 2000 was a game where it's pick up and play, but there was a technical depth to it. And I think the one difference is the fact that you could pick a wrestler up and you could cancel pins. You were pinning the guy and you could go, no, we're going to carry on. That was huge. I think that's perhaps when wrestling games started acknowledging that fans wanted to mark out and play smart matches, as opposed to being it's a pin, it's over.
Yeah, or just be a little bit more cruel and malicious.
Yeah.
It's like he's beat. I've got him pinned. 1, 2, but I'm not done yet.
Pick him up, slap another finisher on him.
And it always amazed me as well that me and my friends and yourself, we could come up with new things to do to an opponent.
Yeah, do
It's
matches
like,
that weren't in the game.
I remember one of the last things I remember coming up with and having this brainstorm. Let's do this, everybody. We'd go into a 2-on-1 or a tornado tag match, and we'd hook an opponent in a tree of woe in the corner and set the ladder up in front of them. And then me and my partner would run in from opposite corners into that corner
Double
and go
baseball.
with baseball slides. And what would actually happen is one of you would hit the ladder, the other one would hit the opponent, but it'd have the effect of the ladder being drop kicked into their face and upside down in the corner. It would look awesome.
It did.
And it's one of the things you pull it off and you both high five it in real life. You're like, yeah, look what we did. Yeah, look at that guy, bust open, ladder in his face.
Well, that's it. No Mercy, of course. If you were one of the fortunate ones like you and I did, we had the version that had blood in it
Oh
that they recalled, and then republished it without the blood because it had the game breaking bug where if you won the 100-man Royal Rumble to unlock Andre the Giant, it would crash the game save and restart it again. So you just never did that. It's okay. I want blood in this game. It's fine.
Yeah. And that's fine as well because you with the emulators nowadays you can just
Yeah.
save state.
Yeah.
Oh no, you crashed. Okay, just load.
Yeah, it's fine. But you remember those days? Hey, you know the worst? I can't find my No Mercy copy. It's around the house somewhere. Can I find it? No. I've still got the original case, man. My case for it's still in good condition as well. So, and like I said,
and that's difficult. If anybody's got any Nintendo systems from the NES all the way up to the N64, your boxes are cardboard.
yeah, they were. They were just cardboard with a bizarre cardboard inlet with like these two little folds on the inside to hold the game in, and they would just deteriorate, just sat on your shelf.
Yeah, if you like people are just chewing them while you're out.
Yeah, fine. Not that I had anyone ever come around and eat my cases, but I'm aware of what you mean. There, they just deteriorated too quick, and that the hinges when you opened them many times, you'd find yourself having to just keep your games away from your case, just so you didn't deteriorate the case any more than it already was.
Or you'd go and collect your game off the shelf, pick it up, and it turns out the game is still on the shelf, and you've just got an empty box in your hands. How did this happen?
I've all done that. Yeah, my No Mercy is still sitting around somewhere. I think it's in that cupboard, but can I find it? No. But then again, I've got an emulator and I can run it at full speed, so why would I play the N64 version?
Because you can.
Because I can, yeah, because I can. The amount of guys I made in that game was crazy. I mean, that was an important part. You hit on that earlier. Custom characters. I mean, the fact that you could create your own guys from Warzone onwards, really, right? So, in Warzone, you could make guys that kind of looked like the guys that who won in WF at the time.
Yeah, and they also had set moves lists.
That was
so
it.
You just kind of based your character on the fact it had a finisher. It's like there was a character with a sharpshooter finisher. It's like, well, that's going to be Bret Hart or Sting.
Yeah. But then when with Attitude came along, you could actually customize. So yeah, customize the moveset with and choose the finisher, wasn't it?
That's right. Yes, that played just lovely as well.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah, it plays like a dog now.
And a bad one.
Yeah.
That's a bad dog. Don't do that no more.
But then if you look at, say, No Mercy, we say the AKI titles released, so WrestleMania 2000, All Japan games at the time. If you change the costume in game, it would change the intro as well, because of course it used the in-game assets for its intro. So you effectively could recreate the new up-to-date attire of the guys you've got, and it would reflect in that in the intro, and it would look cool as fuck.
Just as a side note as well, have you played Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 on the N64?
It's not a game I've got, so no, but it's good.
You want to, because you know how the other AKI titles have all these different brands in?
Yeah.
This game actually has all of the proper brands in.
Oh, really?
It's got WCW, New Japan, All Japan, FMW, Michinoku Pro, Rings, Pancreas, Pride, Battle Arts, all properly in there.
Wow. I mean, that could have been cheap either for licensing wise.
Oh no. I mean, to get all the Japanese ones in there, that was some good effort, but then to throw in WCW as well.
Yeah. I think I might have to go and have a look on the old emulator later.
That's providing you can find it.
Well, yeah, because they've all gone down, of course, and it was a Nintendo one, and they're the ones who've slapped everyone with the
Thank you, Nintendo. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't like your products anyway, and now you absolutely suck.
Man,
Going into business for yourselves. God, you're such a work.
And that there's Nintendo, it's trickle down games and all there. We'll do a virtual store where you can download NES games at £10 each. Fuck yeah! I've got this game 7 times already. I'm not going to pay again.
It's unbelievable. unbelievable. The pricing they pay for it, the charge, sorry. I mean, it's. I'm not the biggest fan of the Neo Geo games coming on to the Xbox One, and you having to pay about £6.89 or something like that per title. But when you consider it used to be like £300 per game for the Neo Geo original.
Mm. And Neo Geo was one of them consoles I always wanted to get because I knew how cool it was to own one and have one. But I always knew that the reason I didn't get one is the fact the games cost £300 each. But then again,
And that was for a rubbish game as well.
I also know that actually contained the entire arcade board in that cartridge. And that's why it was so expensive.
Just ridiculous, but it played so well.
Yeah, I say like King of Fighters and so on, and Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting. That everyone it was arcade perfect. It was beautiful. But then,
Exactly, because it wasn't arcade perfect. It was the arcade.
yeah, I like the Saturn and PlayStation versions, but never quite there.
Do you see how sport you people are nowadays?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. But the arcade games are just. Is there anything new even coming to arcades these days? I don't know.
Does anybody know? Does anyone even go to the arcade anymore?
Well, I went to the arcade like when went to Felix though with Dad, and it was weird to see new arcade machines. There was like a Walking Dead arcade machine there, that kind of had you as with a crossbow to firing like a crossbow light gun. That was cool, but I didn't see any graphically. It looked like a Dreamcast game.
Yeah, there's a nice place in town as well. Getting a little bit regional here for you. Nottingham's Corner House. They've got an arcade with their Skegness ticket system.
Oh yeah,
My kids love going in there, so I take them there. It's one of the best £25 you can spend. And they're in there for a few hours, and then they save the tickets and buy some sweets at the end.
yeah. Pretty much. It's like you get your tickets and then you trade them in for things that cost far less than you've paid. But hey, it's part of the fun.
Yeah, but they sit there, they're playing some video games, they play some bowling, they shoot things that aren't really there with things, throw balls at things, get some tickets, buy some ridiculously hot sweets, can't eat them, spit them out.
I was say, have you ever actually seen an arcade wrestling game at the arcade?
The only time I've ever seen an arcade wrestling game was when I was down at Skegness. I think I was about 14, and it was on free play, and it was WWF WrestleFest.
What a game that was!
And it was epic. The great thing was as well, because it was being on free play, you could just keep pressing the button where you'd put coins in, and your energy bar just refill again.
Hey, there is a wrestling game we've missed out. There is one. On the Dreamcast, you had WWF Royal Rumble,
Oh my god, I loved that.
which actually was in terms of its timeline, it kind of came out between SmackDown and SmackDown 2, and effectively it was SmackDown on the Dreamcast, but it was just an arcade game.
It was very arcadey. I think you had singles matches, possibly tag team, and then there was just survival Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that's
I think
right, yeah.
There was a regular Royal Rumble as well. Last at 30.
Yeah, it was
And I
just
still to this day remember getting 109 eliminations with Matt Hardy.
wow.
I worked my ass off for that 109.
Actually, I might actually play that tonight. Just randomly off the cuff, might actually put on Royal Rumble because I've still got my copy over there. Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was singles. There was tag mode. I think in the tag mode you chose, and I think the roster was quite small. Actually, I think the roster was only about 15 guys. I think even that's been generous. And then you press because I think at the arcade it was just 3 buttons. I think it was like run, attack, and grapple. You press them all together. You hit your finisher, or you press 2 of them, and your tag team partner would run in and do a double team with you.
Oh no, there was 4 buttons. There was the run, attack, grapple, and then there was the whip button.
Yeah, that was separate, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so you stagger him into the ropes. So you grab him from behind, press the button with a direction, then stagger backwards into the rope, and you could push him over. Or
Yeah, because when you press 2 buttons together, your tag team partner would come in and slap a finisher, and then just dive back out again, or would do like a suplex or tag team grapple in the corner. I think I think Taz was in there. I think Jericho was there.
Taz was definitely in there. Jericho, the Hardys, Edge and Christian.
Stone
It
Cold
was a
was in there.
WWE game. Definitely Kane, Undertaker, and Triple H.
Yeah.
Austin would have been The Rock.
Ross. I think Big Show, maybe.
I think the Big Show was in there.
Because I can remember the Royal Rumble itself, he'd end up fighting the same guys would come over and over again. Rikishi was in there.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because at the time he was
It was over.
hot shit. Yeah.
So if Rikishi was in there, was like Brian Christopher and Scotty Hottie there as well?
Don't think they were. 'Cause you've got to bear in mind it would have been the top guys.
Yeah.
I know it sounds weird when you say the Hardys and Edge and Christian, but what you do need to remember is at that time they were at the very top
Yeah.
of the game. Actually, I've just pulled up the roster. It's surprising, actually. Al Snow was in there. Big Show, Jericho, D'Lo Brown, Edge, Godfather, both Hardys, Kurt Angle, Kane, Mankind, Rikishi. Actually, Christian wasn't in there. Road Dogg, but yet no Billy Gunn. The Rock, Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon, X-Pac, Taker, Triple H, Taz.
Alright. Yeah, because what would happen is you'd play the Royal Rumble mode and the same guys would come out 2, maybe 3 times.
That's right. Vince and Shane were actually unlockable characters.
Yeah. It was a decent game, actually. Like I say, basically, it was SmackDown for the Dreamcast. So at the time, visually, it looked far better than the PlayStation SmackDown did. It came out before SmackDown 2 did, so...
It was a grand total of 21 wrestlers,
Not
including
quite,
2 unlockables.
not quite the 30 needed for a Royal Rumble, but hey.
Yeah,
Wasn't
Batman
Vince like the
kicking
last
nads.
guy to come out in the Royal Rumble mode? Is that what it was? When you unlocked him? Wasn't he like the last guy to come out?
I can't remember, to be honest.
Because I guess that's talking about the 32-bit era. I guess the Dreamcast sits at a bit of a weird point in that, because it wasn't the success next generation, but it was at the end of the 32-bit, 64-bit era. Kind of overlapped.
Well, it was Dreamcast, so
Yeah,
it wasn't 64. It was 1 to 8, weren't it?
it was done to 8. Yeah, so it kind
I
of
think we're starting to creep out of our realm.
it sits in the 3D realm that was the Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation 2 era, but it also kind of straddles into the 32-bit era because it kind of sits as a game console, that 4-year run that it had, floating over both. It was next gen while also being, at that time, being the 32-bit, 64-bit. So was it 5th generation, 6th generation?
Can't remember.
I don't remember.
The one thing I do know for a fact, the Dreamcast was the console of the future.
Yeah, it was. So much shit was done.
It was so far ahead of itself. It was what consoles are today, back in 1998.
Yeah.
Full internet, video playing abilities, music, just very good graphics with excellent sound. The only thing they didn't do at the time was the DVDs.
Yeah, but then DVDs were made by Sony at the time. I can when I used to work at Time Computers, we had DVD drives that came in for the PC, and they were £1,300.
Dear God.
And we're talking like a 4-speed. Fucking hell! I can remember seeing that drive and the price that was $12.99 and going, I remember that shit at retail. So the fact that I even came to a console, you know, that's the difference when the PlayStation 2 came out of how important that was, being at a $3.99 price point that it was. How important that was. It was £600 cheaper than a DVD player.
I know they made such a loss on making the PlayStation 2, but they knew they'd make it with the games.
Yeah.
And they did.
Man, so that's the conversation for the next time. So I guess that's going to be SmackDown, just bring it onwards from there, and WWE Raw, Raw.
Oh, and don't forget WrestleMania on the GameCube.
Yeah, and Day of Reckoning stuff. So that's to come next. So we're going to bow out now. This was Wrestle DX Alpha. We hope you've enjoyed our ride today through what was the flashback of the pay-per-views that have been this week. Our gaming conversation and time that we lived and came through that era. and our thoughts on what's coming up next. So until next time, that's Kev, I'm Christian, and we're bowing out of here. We'll catch you next time.
Take care.